ages and ages, the old boy advice was always, if you're going to buy a new bike, invest in your frame, invest in your wheels, and then use whatever's left in your budget to get your group set and your finishing kit. Finishing kit was easy to upgrade. You can switch bits out as much as you want, no bother. And your group set is going to wear out anyway. You can upgrade that. Get your wheels sorted. They're the things that are going to make the difference. What we've learned over the last 18 months, it just doesn't work anymore. So this video is what we've learned over the last couple of seasons of speccing out your dream build, because it got way more complicated.
So if you're putting together your dream build, where do you start? And actually, even though things have changed a little bit, we are still going to start with the frame. So that's a bit of a relief. But what is it that we're going to be thinking about? When you're first choosing your frame, you're going to have to figure out, what do you actually want it for? Why are you buying this frame? What kind of riding are you doing? Where are you going to take it? And how do you future-proof it? So all of those factors need consideration. Are you going to be riding on gravel? Are you just going to be riding pure road? Where's the line between those categories these days, now that we've got all-road tyres with 35, 40, 45, 55 mil clearance? Those categories have changed a little bit. We might want to look at the ASTM2 rating of the bike, which means that it's kind of rated for gravel. And that will be a little bit more solid maybe, but would there be a weight trade-off if it's actually just a road bike that you need? We might want to think about whether we're going to be putting any bags on there, if we need racks, if we need mud guards. Are we riding this bike in all weathers, or is it just our kind of fair weather friend? So in choosing your frame, you've got to think about things like, what kind of tyre clearances do you want? What category is that bike going to fit into? We also need to think about, how is that frame going to influence the group set that we can put on it after? Because if we look at some of the more modern frames these days, not all of them are designed with the capability of a mechanical group set to be fitted. So some of the cable routing options on the frame might actually limit you in terms of the group set that you go on to choose. Of course, once you've made that decision of what kind of bike is the right one for you, what the purpose is, what you want it for, and made all of those choices, you also need to make sure that it's going to be right for you. So it needs to fit you and your unique physiology. Because unless you're comfortable on this bike, you're probably not going to want to ride it. So we need at least to be able to set it up in a way that is going to suit your proportions. So in terms of putting together your dream build, picking the frame first feels pretty standard. But what comes next might surprise you.
Finishing kit, or should it be called a starting kit? Because a lot of this stuff now, you need to make really key decisions really early on, and it's now expensive. It used to be that you could get a stem, 30, 40 quid, maybe even buy a second-hand one, swap it out when you feel like it. Now, you really have to think, because with all the internal cable routing, it is a mammoth job to undo it and just swap out a stem length, for instance, or even just a different type of stem, maybe you want to upgrade. Now, so many people are going for like one-piece handlebars from a variety of different brands, all offer different types of shapes. And if you're not, then you need to find a stem that's compatible with the top caps, that's compatible with the bearings, that's compatible with your frame. It turns into a bit of a minefield, and there's so much choice out there. Now, there is a little bit of light at the end of the horizon. Some sort of standard kind of is emerging around the 52, 51.8 millimeter with a standard 56 millimeter top cap. But that's only for a few brands. There's still loads of proprietary stuff out there, which you then have to think, well, if I want to change a different handlebar, how do I make that proprietary stuff match the handlebar that I actually want to run? And that's where we end up in a whole world of hurt with different 3D printed top caps from a variety of brands, or these little cable guide covers. And I mean, probably the one of the most common is the FSA standard now, and that's the FSA top cap, and you can now get like 3D printed adapters that take you from an FSA cap like that and onto the bar. Kind of looks a bit janky compared to a nice, actually made for it 3D printed system that just looks a whole lot nicer. And of course, as you change out all the top caps, you'll also need to think about all the different compression rings. So here's a whole bunch of different compression rings that are all sort of adaptable to change whatever bearing that your bike might take into the handlebar that you might want to take. Now, Token have just come up with potentially the killer product. We're going to cover this in a future video. If you want to see that, subscribe to the channel. But this is apparently a 4-in-1 headset which pretty much adapts any 51.8, 51.9, 52 millimeter to Acros, which is Canyon, etc., Data, FSA, Token. So there is good news on the horizon. More on that in a second. And of course, not just handlebars, but also things like seat post. The 27.2 standard round seat post is now somewhat of a rarity, but even then you might want to choose between a layback or a zero offset, and then you've got to think about, you know, whether you want it to go for carbon rails or you want to go for metal rails, which have a different clamping system. And of course, if your frame set, which ships to you with a proprietary seat post, do you then have to order in the zero layback one if you want to? Is it going to be the right size? So much to think about and really expensive choices before you can progress to group sets, and now your decision making gets really good fun. So I've got Hannah here to help me out with this one. Yep. Now I want to start at mechanical shifting, so presuming that you have chosen a frame that is actually compatible with mechanical shifting.
And you've managed to find a headset that will allow cables to route through it as well as brake hoses.
Good point. What is actually available on the market right now?
In terms of group sets, there's not as much as there used to be, for sure. It used to be quite, you know, standard and straightforward that, you know, the simplest option, cheapest option would be to go for a reasonable quality mechanical shifting system. I feel like the electronic stuff's just exploded recently.
Has just taken over,
completely taken off. So what's left in the mechanical?
Yeah, we have this from SRAM. This is the Apex shifter, the last update of this mechanical shifting.
Yeah, so this was last updated in, I think, 2016.
Yeah.
And they've basically discontinued everything else. I think you can still get bits and pieces.
Force and Rival, just about red is definitely a no, is that?
Basically for repairs.
It's chunky, isn't it? Do you remember these? Not an awful lot going on from SRAM. SRAM are pretty much committed to,
and I guess
wireless.
Similarly, Campagnolo have also, their last update for anything mechanical was 2018.
Apparently it's still on the website, they still make it, but it's not been updated for a decade now.
Yeah, it is a while ago. And you can't get any high-end stuff from them either on mechanical shifting.
No, not unless you're hunting, yeah.
So you're kind of left with Shimano, who do still have a bit of a range, more than any of the other kind of distributors, but we're still kind of looking at kind of the Sora, the Tiagra. You can get up-to-date 105 and GRX in a mechanical shifting option, and obviously there's the new Qs that is relatively modern but incredibly heavy, so probably not something we're going to be
specing.
This
is a 10-speed Tiagra, which is in theory still available, but it's the same price at retail as the modern 12-speed 105. I know that some like tourist cyclists, they just still do a triple, but yeah, that's pretty ancient technology now, isn't it? It's and then there's Qs, which is
9-speed only at the moment in terms of group set offerings. I think they're struggling with stock.
Definitely. It's we haven't really seen the drop bar levers yet, have we? But it is coming, and it's chunky. It's a boat anchor, that's for sure. It's not the lightest weight thing. And then of course the 105 group set is good, but
it's good quality.
That's about all that really exists, I think. So
it's worth mentioning that there are other kind of contributors to this that aren't quite as big. There's other players. So you've got Microshift and
Growl Tech, if you really want to get out there, the one with the friction shifting drop bar levers. Yeah, there's some stuff out there, isn't there?
And we've also got kind of some companies starting to make aftermarket components to pair, but you still need to use the levers that are available from these major companies.
So we've got that Madrone, Ingrid, Ratio. You might have seen the leak on Pink Bike. They're still very much dependent on those GRX levers and these, which is like slightly scary for them, I'd imagine. So yeah, mechanical is a bit tricky right now, I'd say. And meanwhile, the prices on electronic are coming down and down and down. We've now got Apex and Rival Axis, which are pretty much the same price, about £1,000, which is pretty much the same price as 105, which is only a smidge cheaper than Ultegra. I mean, the crazy thing is like 105 Di2 is now like £950 or something in the UK, and Ultegra is now, I think it's currently on Merlin at 1,100.
Yeah.
It's like, who would do that?
Why wouldn't you just upgrade if you can? Obviously, not everyone can afford to do that, but...
The weirdest thing with electronic is there is just now a massive jump to the next stage, and that's like SRAM Force and Dura-Ace are on the same. I've made a video about it before it broke the internet, as everyone thought I was comparing Force with Dura-Ace, but they're the same price. So you've got to compare, you know, price to price. And then obviously a SRAM Red and a super record 13 speeds Campagnolo finally have a good group set, but it is it is so much money. I think we're all eagerly awaiting for Campagnolo to get back in the game. But there we go. It is a minefield, but I think nearly everyone is going for 105 Ultegra. I mean, Ultegra, bit of force here and there as an upgrade.
I mean, that's what we've fitted most of in the last sort of year.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that all said, one piece remains.
There's one thing that we haven't talked about at all yet on this podcast, and that is the internal gear options that are available from Roloff, Alpine, obviously the Shimano offering, and also Pinion, which is up and coming on the field, especially in the mountain bike world. Now, those systems all do require a little bit more specific from your frame. So chances are, if you're going to do that, you know about it from the start, especially if you're planning to work with something like a belt drive, because that does require your frame to come apart and needs that split in it from the beginning. So those options obviously are out there as well for very specific uses. Often that's around the world touring, or for Pinion, it's actually making a name for itself in mountain biking and downhill and stuff like that as well. And now Paul can talk about wheels.
So after all that, what's left in your budget? Somehow you've got to get a set of wheels together. And this is where the decisions get really, really difficult. Wheel choice has gone off the charts. There are so many Chinese imports, Western brands are going through the roof. Somewhere in the middle is a mismatch of stuff that's pretty reasonable, but trying to wade through it all is an absolute nightmare. Like almost every single conversation we have with a customer, we get stuck up on wheels. So here's some examples of stuff that we've been working with recently. First off, the budget's really, really tight and you just got to get a set of wheels to get riding, and we'll worry about it another time. DT Swiss, Ryan builds wheels, some people out there that are doing some fantastic stuff around the £400 price list. These just came across our desk recently. These are the Erie Research Explorer 8s, I think they are. £399. Yeah, they're heavy, like 1,890 something grams. So pretty heavy, but they'll get you going. Lifetime warranty. You can smash around on that all winter long. Worry about an upgrade at another time. Other wheels that we've been doing well with recently are the Erie Research Genus. These are 1,499, so they're coming in at a good price. Carbon spokes, fantastic weight, like 1,400 grams or something. Tons of value for money in that. But they're carbon spokes, you've got to be a bit careful. Of course, our favorite fast forward riots, and I keep coming back to them because they tick so many boxes. They're a standard DT Swiss hub, which every bike shop around the world can fix. They're standard sap-in spokes, they're brass nipples. They're basically the wheel set that us as a wheel builder would build, you know, if we could get them at anywhere near the same price with anywhere near the same sort of warranty. And then of course, talking of home builds, something that we still do loads of, we import light bicycle. I want to say import, we don't do loads and loads, but we'll get these. There's quite a long lead time on them, but they've got a fantastic choice of rims at relatively competitive prices, and we can build this with whatever you want. We can go super budget on like Bitex hubs and, you know, round spokes, or we can go really elaborate as well with like Chris King hubs, but we can normally find something that sort of fits inside your budget. This is a great option when you want something really weird, like 30mm wide internal and 55mm deep, which seems to be a bit of a trend in gravel. And then we sort of have things like the fast forward Raws. It's not like the sort of stuff that we keep in stock all the time, but we've also got the Zip NSW range, which are a fantastic set of wheels for those of you who don't mind the hookless things. They do ride really well. Scope AirTechs are coming to the shop pretty soon as well, and of course the Princetons are right up there, but that's like budget end. We can start from anywhere basically. Wheels is probably where we spend the most amount of time speaking to you guys and head scratching and trying to get everything sort of squeezed into a budget. Right, let's go discuss that. The biggest factor really, and it's definitely true that custom building a bike is a mid to top tier endeavour, that's for sure. Carbon frames below £2,000 are quite rare. Aluminium frames below £1,000 are pretty rare. Interestingly, importing anything cheaper becomes problematic with tax and stuff.
For various reasons.
Yeah, it's a video that I've been meaning to make for a long, long time. If you guys are actually interested in that, put it in the comments. I might actually get around to making it one day. But probably the biggest thing is cycle to work vouchers here in the UK. They're a big influence on budgets.
Sure, and that's something that we have done a lot of work with over the summer, certainly, and beforehand as well. Cycle to Work in the UK, we've got a scheme where your employer can basically put you through a tax incentive with a salary sacrifice so that you can save some tax when you buy a bike. They will allocate you a budget of usually between £3,000 and £5,000 to spend that on. So what tier you're at might dictate a little bit what you choose to spend it on, whether it's a full bike or whether you're just going to upgrade an existing bike or use some parts that you already have.
And that's the great thing now. The scheme used to be you've got to buy a whole bike, and now they've opened it up to you can buy helmets and safety gear and all sorts of stuff.
I mean, I think when the scheme first came out, it was about £1,000 that they would give you. So they've expanded that as well. Which...
It's pretty much unlimited. It's rare that we see £10,000 ones, but I'd say £3,000 to £5,000 is like your average cycle to work scheme voucher, which is a brilliant incentive. You guys save tax and we get charged a small commission for doing that. So we've got to be a bit careful with our prices and stuff.
With that budget, we can also... you can add a little bit more as well. So if yours capped at 3,000 or you're capped at 5,000 and you go a little bit over that, then you're welcome to put in a bit more cash just to get that dream build that you're really after.
Yeah, absolutely. And then of course, outside of that, if you don't have that scheme with your employer, we can be a little bit more flexible on prices. And actually, Shimano are really good at this. So outside of clearance deals, they nearly always offer local bike shops the opportunity to price match internet prices as well, which is brilliant. So thanks to that, Shimano. I'd definitely say go and speak to your local bike shop, because you might see these fantastic deals online, and your local bike shop probably has access to similar sort of deals, just might not be as advertised.
Well, for sure. Sometimes there's like, we'll go onto our kind of B2B business sites and we'll find out that actually something's half price, and we weren't aware of that because we've not been looking at that particular item. We're not set up in the same way as these online.
Yeah, we're not e-commerce people like most local bike shops are. Too busy renting and doing YouTube to know what's on sale. And
but on the other hand, if you come to us and say, look, I've been looking at this wheel set, they're a really good price on xyz.com, there's a chance that we might be able to help out with that.
Yeah, basically every single local bike shop normally bend over backwards to try and help out someone if you've got good questions or stuff like that. I think what we've learned in this whole process, and hopefully what you guys have learned from this video, is that there is lots to consider now. The frame is still chassis, it's still king. That's still the key thing to absolutely get right.
And invest in.
Absolutely, yeah. It's going to be the thing that you hopefully own for a decade or so. The other key thing is that your finishing kit, starting kit, is significantly more expensive than you might have thought about.
It's not an after build add-on anymore. It's something that you've got to really factor in from the beginning. It
can very easily creep to £500 easily at the bottom end, easily hit £1,000 if you're not careful, and that's a decision you've got to make right at the early stages.
And actually, even with the build process, you don't put it on at the end anymore. It's the first things you've got to do.
And then of course, group sets actually is quite an easy decision. With mechanical, you're very limited on what the actual choice is. And then on electronic, £1,000, there seem to be an awful lot of things around the £1,000 choice, of which Ultegra is the clear value winner at that point. And then after that, you have an awful lot to consider. So group sets has actually become
quite easy,
fairly easy.
And you know, they're all kind of similar in terms of what they offer. It's not like you've got drastic differences in ratios or anything like that. The main kind of differentiating factor is going to be weight.
And they're all good.
Yeah, they are all good.
You're not going to be massively disappointed with any of them really on the market, that's for sure. And then wheels, oh my God. Like, wheels just seem to change every 5 minutes.
Spoiled for choice. But the thing that isn't changing is the hub, which is actually really useful. So you can go between lots of different wheels and the hub will still fit the frame.
Yeah, thank God we've still got some sort of standardisation.
Some kind of continuity.
Your rim width, your tubeless, your hookless and all that sort of stuff might change a lot. Carbon spokes, the works. But wheels is probably still the headache that most people have, I'd say. And with that all said, I hope you found that video somewhat useful. We definitely found it useful making a video.
Yeah, like talking through it all. That's been
consolidating our thoughts and stuff like that. If you've got more to add, please get down in the comments. I'm sure everyone watching this video will appreciate your opinions on that. So get down there in the comments. We're looking forward to reading them, that's for sure. And until the next one, take it easy.
See ya.